I've got this little joint tacked up here. It's two lap joints and two sides of a T-joint. 6011 is very much like a 6010, sort of a cousin of a 6010, except that you can use AC. You can't run 6010 on AC. The good thing about 6011s is a lot of newer inverters today will not run a 6010, but they will run a 6011. I think it's a very handy rod to have for just when you're in a pinch, when you're called on to go make a weld somewhere, and they tell you, we've got everything you need, just bring your helmet. You might do yourself a favor to bring along some 6011 in different diameters. So I'm doing a little whip and pause motion here, and that means I'm coming ahead about 2 electrode diameters and then coming back about 1 electrode diameter. And that's typical for 6011 or 6010. You can kind of control how much penetration or how much you cool off the puddle with your stroke here. Like if you're coming way out of the puddle and back in, you can kind of keep the puddle cool. If you just use a really small motion, you can dig and get deeper penetration. It's a really versatile rod. We'll clean that one up a little bit and see what we got. It's you get rougher ripples with a 6011. It's not going to be as pretty as a 6013 or a 7014 or a 7018, but it's super useful for out of position welding. You will typically always get more penetration uphill than you will downhill using a 6011, or most rods for that matter. But there are certain situations where downhill just flat out works better and penetrates just fine. All right, I'm at 115 to 120 amps on AC. One of the reasons I like to use AC with a 6011 is you just avoid any potential arc blow issues. And arc blows when you weld long for a little while and that electrode starts burning off to one side. It sets up magnetic forces and it burns off unevenly, and you really got to cram it in there to keep from undercutting and everything. Well, on AC you don't get arc blow, and I just kind of like it because it runs the same from start to finish. You know, the rod starts off welding one way and it pretty much welds the same way all the way to the end of the rod. You notice some differences with like DCEP. When the rod heats up toward the end of the rod, it starts melting off a little differently. So this is the downhill run, keeping that angle kind of poked up in there. Push the slag back. You're going to have coarse ripples. It's not going to be as slick as other rods, but it's got good penetration. Very handy rod. Here's a really good example from a previous video doing a field modification using a small welder, an inverter MIG welder that also does stick and scratch start TIG, doing a gate modification. This is one of those instances where 332 6011 might even be handier than 1/8 because 332 takes less amperage, and if you're running off a drop cord, sometimes that's a huge deal. Keep you from popping a breaker. But either way, here are the benefits of 6011. You can weld outdoors where there's a breeze. You can weld over light rust or paint. No gas required. 6011 works with most inverters where 6010 does not. You can go uphill or downhill, horizontal, doesn't matter. It's a great rod for all positions, uphill or downhill. Deep penetrating rod. You can use a whip and pause type motion. A lot of people do. You don't really have to do much of anything. You can drag it. You can do small circles, small hitching back and forth. For light duty stuff like this, it doesn't really matter what you do. It's a good deep penetrating rod, and again, you can go downhill with it. So in those instances where you're welding, let's say 1/8 inch or 3/16 wall angle iron, zipping a little fillet weld downhill makes a lot more sense sometimes, especially when it's just a light duty job like this. There are times when uphill is called for, but on light jobs, 1/8 inch especially and thinner, downhill is the way to go. And here's another little shot of that with an arc shot. The main thing is having your amperage set about right, keeping that arc length pretty tight. If it goes out on you, getting that arc established really quickly and just get right back in there. Staying ahead of the flux, or the slag, I should say. This is just one of many examples where 6011 rods shine for doing field repairs like this. Welding over galvanized, a quick gate repair, or some type of lug or hinge that you got to weld out in the field. It's just a really quick way to get the job done. Now this is a Lincoln Power MIG 210 MP, a good little machine, but a much more affordable machine that essentially does the same thing is PrimeWeld MIG 180. This is a small MIG welder that's got a really sweet MIG arc, but also does stick welding and scratch start TIG. All you need to do is flip it over to the MMA knob for stick welding. And in this case, in this video, I threw a 332 6011 in there to make a quick gate repair. and redo some welds that were really pretty crappy. So after grinding out the old welds, and pretty much just could cut a pie wedge out of them and chisel them out with a screwdriver, I mean they were barely in there, I found some old 332 6011s laying around. And since this gate material was basically no thicker than 1/8 of an inch thick, 11 gauge, I just decided to weld a nice little quick downhill run on there, burning in nice and deep at somewhere around 80 to 85 amps on DC EP. If it was a whole lot thinner, I could have switched it over to DC EN, and that would have worked good too. The whole point of this video is have yourself some 1/8 and 332 6011s in your toolbox when you go to make field repairs.